Thank you. Second, 1 p.m. For the NVTA-TA board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 1:01. At Vice Chair Joseph, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Let's see here. Next, we have the approval of a board member request for remote participation. I understand we have 2 members.
Yes, we have 2 board members participating remotely under Just Cause today, and the board approval will not be needed. Directors Mueller and McKee can't. Are there any individuals present over the age of 18 in the room at your location? Director
Laura,
Mueller, can you hear?
And unmuted. This is Robin. There are no people under 18 in this particular room, which is my office. My husband is in the home, however.
Director Mueller, do you have any individuals over the age of 18 in the room?
No.
Thank you. We may begin roll call.
Excellent. Go ahead and start.
Leon Garcia,
Here.
Mark Joseph,
Here.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Present.
Liz Alessio,
Present.
Scott Sedgley, Alfredo Pedroza, Ryan Gregory,
Here.
Paul Doring, Anna Shuto,
Here.
Margie Mueller,
Here.
Robin McKee can.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Next is the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes for the NVTA-TA agenda? And if not, do we have a motion to approve and a second?
So move Garcia.
Moved by Garcia,
I'll second Shuto.
second by Shuto. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Mueller,
Yes.
Robin McKee can.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Our next item is the public comment. Do we have any public comment in the chambers? I don't see anybody. Online, do we? The NVTA-TA? No? Excellent. Okay, moving on to item 7, which is chairpersons and board members updates. Do we have any updates from board members on this agenda? Not seeing any. I don't have any either. Next is the executive director's update. Any update, Executive Director Miller?
No updates.
Thank you. Moving on to number 9, which is public hearings. Public hearings on the approval of a resolution number 22-03-TA, revised amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual operating budget by our very respected and appreciated Antonio Honorado. This is on pages 7 through 11. And this is an action item.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. My name is Antonio Honorado, and I am the Director of Administration and Finance for the Napa Valley Transportation Authority. So for the public hearing, staff is asking the board to approve resolution number 22-03-TA revised, amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual operating budget and the associated annual appropriation limit of from $24,876,000 to $26,785,000. So back in May 2021, the Board of Directors for the tax agency adopted.
Oh, could we officially open the public hearing?
Oh, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Well, okay, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we need a motion for that? We've been kind of inconsistent whether we need a motion or not. No. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's open the public hearing, and if you don't mind, just kind of recapping and continuing on.
Sure. So for this public hearing, staff is asking the board to approve resolution 22-03-TA revised, amending the fiscal year 2023-24 annual operating budget, which is the current year's annual operating budget, and the associated annual appropriation limit of $24,876,000 to a revised budget of $26,785,000. So back in May 2021, the Board of Directors adopted the TA's budget, which did include a buffer to ensure the seamless distribution of proceeds of Measure T funds of its revenues to the jurisdictions. Now, as the current fiscal year ends next month, forecasted revenues are likely to exceed the initial budget projections. So this surplus is a positive development. The tax agency is expected to receive more funds than originally anticipated. However, as a tax agency functions as a pass-through entity, these excess revenues cannot be distributed to the jurisdictions until a budget adjustment is approved to increase the appropriation limit. The requirement is due to an accounting control measure to ensure that the board-approved spending authority is not violated. So for a regular agency budget, this control is appropriate to ensure expenses are within the board's approval. However, as a pass-through entity, the accounting control hinders our ability to transmit funds to the jurisdictions expeditiously. So without the amendment, any revenues exceeding the appropriation limit will be held in suspense until the board acts and approves a budget amendment. Therefore, staff recommends that the tax agency approve the resolution to allow the Measure T revenues to flow seamlessly without encountering accounting control obstacles. So we basically want to pay you, the jurisdictions, for the Measure T revenues that you're expected to receive in excess of the budgetary appropriation limit. With that being said, that concludes my report, and I can answer any questions you may have at this time.
I doubt you're going to get any arguments on that. Are there any questions here on the dais before we open this up to public comment? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment on this item? Not seeing any in the chambers and none online? Okay, so this might just be just as easy as we're hoping for. Do we have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
I asked for a public comment and there were none. So we have a motion by Gregory. Do we have a second?
I'll second Joseph.
Second by Joseph, all in favor? Oh, we have a roll call. We get to roll call today.
Leon Garcia. Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring.
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent.
And we need to close the public hearing? All right.
Thank you. Just, yeah, ring the bell when I miss that. Yes, and we'll close public comment. So my record shows that we opened public comment at 11:08 and we closed it at 11:09. 1. Yeah. I'm okay. Okay, consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. That's our meeting minutes from April 17th. If nobody wants to pull this item, do we have a motion in a
So
second?
move, Joseph.
Moved by Joseph. Second by Shuto. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams,
Yes.
Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On regular items, we have 11.1, which is the action item. It's the first reading and motion of intent to adopt the Napa Valley Transportation Authority Tax Agency Ordinance number 2024-1, enacting the NVTA Improvement Act and Expenditure Plan, which prescribes pending voter approval, the imposition, divisions, distribution, and administration of a retail transaction and use tax under section 180000. I'm taking of the California Public Utilities Code. And Danielle Schmitz is going to walk us through this on pages 14 through 46.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Alessio, members of the board. Danielle Schmitz here to present item 11.1, the first reading and motion of intent to adopt the Napa Valley Transportation Authority Tax Agency Ordinance as explained by Chair Alessio. So I'm going to read the recommendation verbatim. The Napa Valley Transportation Authority Tax Agency Board, one, introduce the first reading of the NVTA-TA ordinance number 2024-01, the Napa Valley Transportation Improvement Act and Expenditure Plan, known as Measure U, by title only and waive oral reading for the full ordinance. Two, that the NVTA-TA Board direct the Executive Director to prepare and cause to be published a summary of the ordinance and bring the ordinance back to the NVTA-TA for final approval at the June 26, 2024 NVTA-TA Board meeting. The NVTA Board released the draft Measure U ordinance and expenditure plan at their February meeting for circulation to all the jurisdictions. And as of April 16th, all 6 jurisdictions have approved the expenditure plan and reviewed the ordinance and provided comment. The most substantive change since the February meeting to the ordinance was language around the maintenance of effort that is detailed in your board packet today. It really just placed a metering amount of 2% increase on the maintenance of effort amount each jurisdiction would have to pay each year to meet that requirement of the ordinance, and all other changes were very minor in nature. And as I mentioned before, all 6 jurisdictions have approved the expenditure plan of the Measure U ordinance. So the next step for this ordinance is a final reading and adoption during a public meeting of the authority on June 26th. And then it will be submitted to the Board of Supervisors to be placed on the November ballot. The Board of Supervisors has to take action on the measure by August 9th. So again, we're asking the board to introduce the first reading of the ordinance today by title only. And with that, I will take any questions that the board has.
Thank you, Danielle. Do we have any questions here on the dais? Not seeing any questions. Do we have any public comment on this item? And not seeing it, okay, pretty straightforward. Do we have a motion and a second then?
So moved, Garcia.
Moved
So
by
moved.
Garcia,
Second, Joseph.
second by Joseph. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg, Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley,
No.
Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Muller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On item number 12, future agenda items. Are there any items to add to a future agenda of the NVTA-TA? Not seeing any. Then 13, we'll adjourn this meeting at 1:14. And next regular meeting will be Wednesday, June 26th at 1 p.m. Moving on to the NVTA board meeting on this May 22nd at 1:14. We've already gone through roll call. So Laura, we don't have to do that again. Is that correct?
Yes, I can confirm that we have a quorum from the preceding NVTA-TA meeting with 2 board members participating virtually, Director Muller, Director McKee Cant, neither of which has an adult in their room. And we also have our PCC member, Deborah Smith, in attendance.
Excellent. Thank you. Item number 4 is adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Not seeing any. Do we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda?
So moved, Joseph.
Moved by Joseph,
Second, Shuto.
second by Shuto. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Here.
Mark Joseph,
Here.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Muller,
Yes, here.
Robin McKee Cant.
Sorry,
Yes.
my vote was yes.
Thank you.
But
Motion
you're doing roll
passes.
call.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 5, public comment. Is there any public comment for the NVTA board meeting? Not seeing anybody in the chambers. Anybody online? No? Okay. Moving on to item 6, which is chairpersons, board members, MTC, ABAG updates. I do not have an update. Are there any board members with any updates? And if not, we'll move on to,
I have a commissioner update if anybody wants it.
oh yeah, I was gonna move on to
Oh, sorry.
ABAG, see if Director Garcia and then Executive Director, if you want to do the MTC update.
I've noted the last ABAG meeting, they had a good presentation on protected conservation areas. They're trying to update the criteria for both of those to well, be more up to date in terms of what's allocated, potential areas for conservation areas. Certainly a big sensitive issue here in Napa County, wanting to preserve both agriculture and environmental areas. Second part was the whole discussion on housing allocations. And again, going through more specific criteria to identify what is very low. There's also an issue with extremely low, given the economic surge in cost and housing. It becomes more and more of an issue. How much of the workforce can actually afford to live in the areas where they work, and building housing accordingly. Of interest of note, saw a piece in the Napa Register that said Napa County median price is around $850,000. You need an income of about $275,000 to be able to afford that $5,000 plus a month rent. American Canyon is moving forward well on the low and very low income side. The Cove is certainly 6 units that are all low and very low income. And it seems to be making progress and moving forward. So we're trying to establish a base for workforce housing. I know other jurisdictions have challenges with that, but they each are decided at a local level. But the ABAG, in terms of distributing those allocation numbers that come from HCD, is to understand better what those implications are and what the criteria is to be able to meet that. So that was a good part of the discussion, the last ABAG meeting.
Thank you. And then Executive Director, would you like to give us an MTC update?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. So there's an item that I pulled off the MTC Executive Director report, which I think was pretty exciting for the region. The engineering of the Transbay Terminal portal modifications, which would accommodate the Caltrain and the high-speed rail services going into the Transbay Terminal, has entered the engineering phase, which will pave the way for the Federal Transit Administration full funding grant agreement for that project. So that's pretty exciting. On April 24th and 25th, the commission held a workshop in San Jose. Day one included an overview of MTC's funding with a focus on public transportation and the discussion about SB 1031, the Wiener-Wahab bill. I'm going to give you an update as part of my legislative report on that bill. Day two included an overview of Plan Bay Area 2050 and then also the toll revenues and stewardship of the Bay Area bridges. The commission today allocated $357,000 in RM2 funds for Vine Transit's Route 29 operations for fiscal year 2024-25. And the commission also approved the regional network management performance measures today, which included near-term approach and long-term vision. The near-term approach includes transit rider outcomes and regional network management and transit operations. And then the long-term vision focuses on reliability, improving speeds, improving real-time data availability, connectivity, travel times, et cetera, et cetera. And that concludes my report.
Very good. Any questions on either of those reports? Okay, thank you. And then we're on to the Executive Director update.
Let's see. Along with staff members Danielle Schmitz, Tony Honorato, Rebecca Shank, and Emily Cherrier-Botts, I attended the California Transit Association's annual Spring Legislative Conference. We also met with Senator Dodd and his staff and Assemblymember Agor Curry's staff. At the conference, CSAC staff provided a summary of the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act, which is otherwise known in civic circles as the Taxpayer Deception Act, which would limit governments from raising taxes and fees. The California Supreme Court is scheduled to act on the proposed initiative's constitutionality prior to the June 27th deadline for the item to be placed on the November ballot. At your June meeting, I will provide a comprehensive analysis of its impacts, and I also talk about ACA 1 and ACA 13. I think there's a lot of information that we don't know about what would happen if they all passed, or if they all failed, then that's pretty clear what would happen then, but yeah. Let's see, project updates. On June 4th, MTC supported by NVTA staff will be holding a public meeting on the Napa Forward project at the Rutherford Grange located at 8550 St. Helena Highway. That meeting is scheduled to start at 5:30. Road closures, after this weekend's plan, State Route 37 closure, Caltrans has added some extra night closures this week, tonight and tomorrow night. Eastbound will be closed from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. Bike to Work and School Day was held on May 17th. NVTA sponsored an Energizer station near the Vine Trail at Soskel and McKinstry. Today, total participation in Bike to Works and School Day this year was more than 100 folks, more than last year, totaling over 1,300 riders. We don't have the actual counts yet, but we should have those next month. NVTA counted 52 cyclists stopping or rolling by in time with the cowbells being rung enthusiastically by NVTA staff members, Danielle Schmitz, Diana Meehan, and Emily Sherrier-Botts. Thank you all for getting up so early to cheer on our Bike to Work School Day riders. And a lot of the other staff rode their bikes to work that day, so we appreciate the support. Staff participated at the Up Valley Senior Health Fair, which was held on May 29th. And August 16th, there will be the Calistoga to St. Helena Vine Trail ribbon cutting event. We will keep you apprised of the information about that event. And there will be extended Vine Transit hours and free rides for Bottle Rock and La Onda again this year. We'd like to thank Latitude 38 Entertainment and the Napa Valley Vintners for their continued support and sponsorship. And then in your packet is a copy of, I'm going to hold this up because I just love it. Hold on. It's here. We have a new cover girl. Rebecca Shank is on the cover of Bustline magazine.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and she was,
Perfect. Where is Rebecca?
she was in, everybody's upstairs. She was featured in the magazine. There's an article about the zero emission bus fleet transition, and it's a really well done article. So congrats on that, Rebecca. Danielle has been busy meeting the California Department of Fish and Wildlife mitigation requirements. There's a couple items in your packet. This is on Soskel Junction. Danielle took the initiative to question the cost of additional Swainson Hawk credits, which reduced the amount of credits from $50,000 an acre to $35,000 an acre, saving the agency almost $50,000. She also made a significant effort to keep project revenues in Valley, and as a result, $416,500 will go towards the Napa Valley Land Trust Project, Rag Ridge, Preserve Red-Legged Frog Habitat Restoration and Enhancement Project. So thank you, Danielle, for your work. And that concludes my report.
Wow. You want to get your team continues just to really step up and go above and beyond. Excellent. Any questions on the executive director report? Okay. Moving on to Caltrans. Do we have a Caltrans update?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. This is Amani. Good afternoon, members of the board. Just to provide you with an update on the Caltrans active projects. We have currently 35 active projects in the multiple phases. For the environmental phase, there are some updates. First one is related to the pavement rehab projects in American Canyon. That is targeted to be completed this end of this month for the environmental and project report with an updates or refinement on the cost estimate from 18.9 million construction capital to plus 22 million. The second page is related to the project. This is a safety projects in various locations in Napa County, and also it's targeting for finalizing the environmental phase and project report by end of this month. Refinement of some of the cost estimate from 4.47 million construction capital to plus 6 million. For the design projects, we have 9 projects, and there has been some shift of the milestones due to environmental and right-of-way constraints. The first one is the Toluca Creek Bridge replacement, with the shift of the design development 100% PSNE to September 24 and RTL by November 25. The second is the storm damage, 5 locations in County of Napa to construct rock slope protection at 5 slip out locations with a 12 months time extension, an extension of the design development 100% by end of this month and RTL by March 2025. Going to the third page, we have the 2Q610. This is a pavement rehab in County of Napa, and the RTL is targeted by end of this month. This location is in Napa River Bridge to Sierra Avenue in Napa County as a pavement rehab. For the Imola Avenue complete street elements, 20 months time extension has been requested due to the constraints from basically the right of way with plus 79 parcel required for this project, with the PSNE is targeted in December 24 and RTL in November 25. Finally, the last project in design is the Hopper Slough, which requests a 20 months time extension for completion of the design development on September 24 and RTL in November 2025. For construction projects, we have 15 projects and all are in track according to the milestones shown in the report. So by this, I conclude my presentation and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amani. I asked this question, I'm going to just jump ahead really quick and then see if there's any questions here on the dais. But last time I was inquiring about the status of the overpass on 29 and Yountville. It seems like it's kind of stalled at this point. Do you have more information on that?
According to discussion with the maintenance, I think it has been installed, but if it is not, then I can reach out to them.
This is Robin McKee-Can from the town of Yountville. Work has started the last 2 nights. It looks pretty intense. It's definitely nowhere near completion.
Do we have a time frame when that might be finished?
Can you just repeat which location you are referring to?
This is the overpass at Highway 29 in California that leads to the Veterans Home.
Yes, this project actually is in construction for 3 bridges, but one of them has been completed, and the 2 bridges for the improvement of the railroad, it will be completed maybe next month. So I can touch base with the construction team and provide you with an updates. My understanding is that 1 location has been completed in this project, but still they are working on the other 2 locations.
It's a little confusing because there's only 1 overpass at this location. There is the railroad down off of Solano, but we might not be talking about the same place.
No, it is the same. It is 1 overpass and 2 other bridges. So actually there are three locations within 1 project. And this project is in construction. That's why I'm saying that they completed 1 location out of the 3, and then the overpass will come maybe within next month or the month after, but I can reach out to the construction team.
Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Thank you, Amani. Is there any questions here on the dais? Not seeing any. Okay. All right. Well, this was informational. Thank you very much for being here and presenting that for us.
Thank you, everyone.
Moving on to our consent agenda, 9.1 through 9.7. Do we have any items that need to be pulled on this? Not seeing any. Do we have any public comment on any of the consent items for the NVTA board meeting? We do not? No? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Joseph.
Moved by Joseph,
I'll second McKee-Can.
second. I heard a second up here, but I wasn't sure. Was that second by? Okay. Okay. Second by McKee-Cant. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia, Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant,
Yes.
motion passes.
Very good. Moving on to regular agenda items, 10.1 is an action item. Been looking forward to this. This is the election of chair and vice chair for fiscal year 24-25. Laura, you're gonna kind of present this. These are pages 237 and 238.
It is time to elect a new chair and vice chair for this upcoming fiscal year. And so we will ask for a report out from the subcommittee.
Thank you. So I met with both two prior chairs who are still on this board. And so met with Director Pedrosa and Director Garcia. We discussed, it was actually very easy discussion and recommendation to you, and that is to bring our vice chair, Joseph, to the chair position. And then nominate or recommend that Director Shuto become the next vice chair for the NVTA and NVTA-TA. At this point, is there any questions or discussion before we open this to public comment? Or comments? Okay, yes, did you want,
Yeah, we can do whatever the board's pleasure is. Do it as one item, like chair and vice chair, that slate, or individually chair and then vice chair. So
okay. Is everybody okay if we just make this one and done? For efficiency? Okay, I got thumbs up
Okay.
and nods over here. Okay. Is there any public comment on this item?
There's
Passing
not.
in chambers, none online? Okay. Do we have a nomination? Do we have someone who'd like to make a motion to have Vice Chair Joseph become our next chair and Director Shuto become our next vice chair?
I move to accept the nominating committee's recommendations and
Excellent, thank you. Director Eisenberg motioned, second by Doring. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes, my mic's working finally.
Mark Joseph, Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Muller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Moving on to 10.2, which is an action item, and this is a fiscal year 2024 salary schedule and job classifications for Napa Valley Transportation Authority and organizational structure. And Laura Sanderlin is also going to present this item, page 239 and 280 to 286.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Alessio and members of the board. My name is Laura Sanderlin. I oversee human resources here at NVTA, and I'm asking the board's approval to adopt the fiscal year 2024-25 salary ranges and also adopt the proposed organizational structure, which would add one full-time equivalent position. For some background, it's NVTA policy to establish and maintain a general compensation and classification structure for employees that we feel is competitive and internally aligned. And the pay grade ranges are to be adjusted annually for all job classifications. And for this year, we're asking the board to consider establishing pay grades to be based on the findings of a compensation study that was conducted over the last 2 months. I have Alyssa Thompson from Gallagher, who was a part of the study, and she'll be sharing a PowerPoint shortly, presenting some of the methodology and process of that study. And for reference, our last formal study was in 2010. So we are overdue and we are happy to have gotten it completed. That study was also the last time a full job classification structure was put into place for the agency. So our agency structure is currently built with 14 job classifications, which I think we can all agree is not the standard to public sector agencies, nor is it sufficient to support internal career progression. So you'll find in the proposed pay grades for this upcoming fiscal year, there's a total of 32 job classifications, and they were also part of the compensation study. Classifications are simply varying levels that an incumbent could be hired or promoted into. They do not represent vacant positions. There's no fiscal impact with this action, as approval only will establish the salary ranges for the upcoming fiscal year, and actual employee salary adjustments are based on their individual performance and performance reviews. For the second request of this item, we are asking the board to approve the addition of one FTE, which increases our organizational structure from 16 to 17 full-time equivalent. The addition of one FTE would support the workload of the agency's procurements and contracts operations, which will require a budget appropriation to increase the personnel budget to cover the salary and benefits, and that would be in the amount of $136,288. So that is the background of the two requests that are being presented, and I'm going to share this PowerPoint from Alyssa. Alyssa, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. And good afternoon, everyone.
One moment while I get this shared for you.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me this afternoon to present on the compensation study. This afternoon, the presentation will speak to the methodology of the study as well as provide an overview of the results. Next slide, please. The purpose of a compensation study like this is to ensure that any recommendations based on the study are based on market data. So the recommendations for the range structure as well as placement of classifications to that structure is based on market. Ensuring that it is fair and competitive. So the method that we use to do the comparisons, we want to ensure that we're consistent in how we approach the matching. And in addition, what we also want to ensure and achieve through this study is that we provide recommendations that are fiscally responsible and equitable. And what we mean by that is that we do rely on the market data for recommendations, but what we also do is look at internal alignment between classifications across the entire organization. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide. So in terms of the compensation study, prior to embarking on the study and collecting data, there are two survey elements that need to be determined. The first is the benchmark classifications, or classifications that we compare externally to other agencies and collect salary data on. And the second survey element to be determined are the agencies in which NVTA compares themselves to. Next slide, please. So in terms of the total number of classifications, we don't survey all classifications. Typically, what we do is we select a subset of the total number of classifications. And for the purposes of this study, we selected these 16. What we ideally want to get out of these classifications is solid market data. So the classifications we do collect data on are typically those that we will find sufficient market data from the other agencies, as well as typically what we select is like a journey level, as well as then the management and then department head of job families. Next slide, please. In terms of the agencies included in the study, here you can see we have 10 agencies that were selected to be included in the study. Agencies that are included are typically selected based on not only geographic location, but more so focusing on scope of services provided. So we wanted to ensure that there were other agencies that provided similar services to NVTA. In addition, we also look at other aspects of the organization, such as size, budget, population served, and geographic location. Next slide, please. The study process itself is pretty standard, and we take the similar approach to all of our studies, really starting off with initial communication with our client, in this case with the office manager, board secretary, just to confirm scope of work as well as timeline. The next step is then to confirm the study variables, which means the agencies as well as the benchmark classifications. Once we have those determined, then we go ahead and collect the market data. One thing to note about our methodology is we do not send out a questionnaire to other agencies to complete. We actually collect that data ourselves and do those comparisons between NVTA's classifications and those of other agencies. Once we have the market data, then we use that with a focus on the market median to make recommendations for salary ranges for all classifications. So not only those that we collected market data on, but those that we did not as well. Once those recommendations have been reviewed and any questions answered, then we typically develop a final report and make a final presentation of the study results. Next slide. In terms of doing the matching and comparisons of NVTA's classifications to those of at the other agencies, like I said, we do the matching ourselves, and we don't necessarily just go by job title. We actually dive deep into each of the classifications and evaluate the factors that you see listed here on this slide. So we want to ensure there's at least a 70% similarity between NVTA's classification and the classifications that we find at the other agencies in terms of these factors. Once we identify that there is at least a 70% match, then we would recommend that classification as comparable to NVTA's. Next slide, please. So this slide here just shows a quick snapshot of the overall results. Overall, in terms of base salaries, NVTA salaries were competitive with market, meaning overall, NVTA was about 2% away from or below the market median. What this chart shows is the distribution of classifications above and below the market median, with those that are in green being below the market median and those that are in blue above. So, and what you ideally want to find for most agencies is clustering around that market median. So what we typically say is that if you're within plus or minus 5% of the market median, that the salary is competitive. So in terms of those salaries to focus on, or in terms of where adjustments could be made, are where the classifications are further away from the market median. Next slide, please. So in terms of moving forward with the market data, the first step is to determine a compensation philosophy or a reference point to the market. And in this case, recommendations were based on market median, which is the midpoint of the market. The next step was then to design a compensation structure. So what we did was we put together a range structure such that it was an open range with a minimum and maximum, and then each range was set of about 2.5% apart. So that way it's just the salary ranges and structure. Once that structure is created, then we can place each classification into the structure based on market. So we start with those classifications that were benchmark classifications. Then the next step is to place all those classifications that were not surveyed into a salary range. And that's typically done based on internal relationships with classifications that were surveyed. The final steps will be to then implement and move forward with both the compensation structure and the range recommendations, and to continue to maintain that structure and system as in future years. And the report that we provided has some guidelines around how to make those adjustments using the structure that we created. Next slide. And any questions or comments?
Any questions or comments at this point? No? Okay. I don't see any. Any online, Laura? No? Nope. All right. Well, thank you for that presentation. Let's open this up to public comment.
Okay.
Any public comment? Not seeing any, and nobody online either that I see. Okay. So, would somebody like to make a motion?
So this is a two-parter, I think, adopting the formal job classification and salary range, and then secondarily adding the additional position.
Exactly.
So from my perspective, having been in HR for a few years, the process seems all very reasonable and normal. So I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2409, adopting the salary ranges and proposed job classes.
Thank you. Yes. Executive Director. It's not working.
Just, I'd like to make one clarification. We're adding one FTE and we are adding a other position. There's a deputy executive director position that we're adding, but it doesn't add an FTE. It would allow people to move within the organization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is just approving the
FTE.
structure.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
the second motion would be to approve the FTE.
got it. Thank you. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure everybody understood.
Yeah, I wanted to save the exciting part for second.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the first item. Do we have a second?
I just have a question before you
Yes.
ask me.
Yes.
Generally,
Slade.
you know, a lot of this revolves around budget discussions and looking at the salary ranges in the structure of it. And I know reading that, you know, the moving up a step is done internally through evaluation and process. So I didn't have time to try to compare things to the budget. I mean, did we look at an overall increase in budget in salaries, wages and benefits? What this would do, the bottom line, if, let's say, if everybody moved up a step? Yeah, I know you won't have that figure right there, but it just seems to me to be a little bit of the horse before the cart as far as adopting a budget and then these salary ranges.
We have to come back to you next month for a budget adjustment for the additional FTE. And it may not be next month, it may be when we hire the individual, because there's a range for this position. And we don't know who's going to be applying and how we would apply that range. So we will come back to the board and request an increase in the budget, most likely, or we can at least tell you what the salary range is. It could be that we actually have enough budget for it now, because we budget for assumed salary increases over the year. And while I think we are fully staffed for the entire budget, a lot of times we're not. So we always come in below what our budget amount is. But I think what we could do is come back to you and tell you what that cost is. But it's certainly not going to be more than, I would say, a couple $100,000 for all of the salary and benefits associated with that new position.
Okay, yeah, just looking at the market comparison, you know, we already have some positions that are above market, but in some in considerable amounts. So I guess that would have to be looked at. The goal would be to stay in the median range, I imagine, on comparable cities. So
Yeah, that's the idea. And also, you know, in circumstances where the individual that has filled a position is over the market, it was really what the market actually demanded when we were hiring. That was my assessment when I took a look at those. It's just like 2 positions, I think, that are over market.
3, right?
3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. That's
But there's a number that are lower too.
right.
Correct,
So-
yeah,
There are.
and to that point, speaking in the same vein, we have added steps in between, right? So some of those higher ranges that you're seeing that are higher in terms of percentage being above market, we've now created steps from the bottom to the top. So we don't have to go and jump to that higher one. We have now varying
Incremental
steps for
classes,
varying
yeah.
levels of experience. And that's something we hadn't had before. So someone may be looking for a more entry level position, but we didn't actually have that available to them. So now approving this would allow for that too.
And then I just also wanted to point out that typically at this time of year, we ask you for an adjustment based on a couple of factors, either CPI or index to 3 other agencies, the average of those agencies, and you bump up the ranges based on whatever the higher amount of those 2 are. And we're not asking you to do that this year because we did this assessment and we acknowledge that we're in range. And then, these new classifications allow incremental shifts for particular employees, and it gives us a lot more flexibility to figure out what we can pay somebody.
Thank you.
Dr. Sesley, are you satisfied with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, Vice Chair.
Even though I made the motion, just to clarify, prior to the step increases, was there a salary range for each position or was it a fixed dollar amount?
There was, but we should have done this a long time ago, but I think as I'm, progressing out and we're doing a lot of succession planning, I want to make sure this was in place. Our classifications were all based on our organizational chart, which was always really confusing to us, so that every time we wanted to make any incremental, like when we wanted to promote someone from assistant planner to associate planner, we came back here and asked you to do that. This allows us the organizational chart stays whole. We must come back and ask you for any additional FTEs, but we can now support, staff that are really accelerating in their roles and allow them to progress in their individual careers without that. And I think that will really improve staff morale, and it'll certainly allow us to recruit easier when we have open positions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think, this is a competitive marketplace. You've got to have at least some basic tools to negotiate.
Yeah, I agree too. And, and it really is, it's, retaining staff in a competitive market, especially in a place that's very difficult to commute in and out of, is really key to the high efficiency and the overall organization, in terms of what we can do and the impact we can make. I think that, our speaker, Alyssa Thompson, did a good job presenting the 2% below or above in that cluster that you ideally want to achieve. So again, and also to have the opportunity and clarity on those incremental increases that our workers can look forward to, but also opportunity to move up within the organization versus having to move out. And that's really important too for this organization. So I know we have a motion. Do we have any other questions? If not, then I will take a second.
I do.
Yeah.
I guess I'm really focused on sort of the long-term implications of how we operate as an agency. It seems to, without sounding like criticism, it seems like we're never really ahead of that. And so my brain says, well, what are we going to need in 5 and 10 years? And are we thinking about that? And, I have no doubt that the compensation model is accurate. We're making these comparisons, and we use the term standard, and probably is a standard, but at some point, do we not owe ourselves as an agency a duty to sort of look at 5, 10 years and then also start exploring what else can be done other than, quote, the standard that fits our organization and our needs? And in particular, one thing that comes to mind is shared services. I'm very difficult to compare that. I'm sure that would be a nightmare to do, but things where we already do some of that, but thinking sort of outside the box to meet our needs because we're an unusual agency, but also ways to control costs by looking at other ways of operating other than just comparing ourselves to the status quo. again, that's not a criticism, it's just more.
No, I
thinking
think.
Down the road.
I think you're making some really valid points. And to that end, Danielle and I actually have been talking a lot about how we might want to shape our countywide transportation plan to be more of a strategic plan. And then we could build on that. And so that will be, probably the focus of our next retreat with you, to talk about that and really do some visioning. And that obviously would spill over and what kind of staff we need to implement that plan. So if you think that sort of satisfies it, I mean, the other option is that we do a separate strategic plan just for the agency, which would probably be more administrative focused and less sort of how do we want to deal with our transportation challenges moving forward. I feel like that kind of comes first, and then the staffing to address that should come second.
All right, thank you.
Mm. Thank you very much. Okay, yes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second by Shuto. Roll call, please, Laura, for the first motion, and then we'll work on the second item.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory, Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto,
Yes.
Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So now on the second item, this is to approve the addition of one full-time equivalent FTE position to the organizational structure.
I'll make that same motion to go ahead and approve the additional position in procurement.
Second, Garcia.
We have a motion by Joseph, a second by Garcia. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Another unanimous motion. Moving on to 10.3 was an action item. Danielle Schmidt is going to present this as the California Red-Legged Frog Mitigation Agreement with Land Trust of Napa County, page 287 to 300. No kidding aside, I actually looked up what the frog looked like, and I've not seen one in person yet. So I'm on the lookout as I hike and traverse Napa County. But can you present this for us?
Yes, good afternoon. Danielle Schmitz here to present item 10.3, the California Red-Legged Frog Mitigation Agreement with the Napa Land Trust of Napa County. And I have been told by the Land Trust that Rag Ridge has several hundred red-legged frogs. So maybe we can we can coordinate some sort of board field trip. The action before the board today is to authorize the executive director or designee to execute and make modifications to agreement number 24-C12 with the Land Trust of County of Napa for mitigation activities related to the red-legged frog habitat, which is a requirement of the Soskel Junction project. And as the Soskel Junction project nears its completion, which we're hoped to have a ribbon cutting later this summer or early fall, and the project should be completed by October of this year, NVTA must meet mitigation for endangered species that were identified during the environmental process. So NVTA has been working with Caltrans to identify appropriate mitigation sites that will meet requirements by the U.S. and the California Fish and Wildlife for both in the earlier board action today, the Swainson hawk, as well as the red-legged frog. And so for this action for the red-legged frog, the Land Trust of Napa County has a project up at Rag Ridge Preserve that will meet the requirements of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Rag Ridge has 1,900 acres of land. It's up near Berryessa. It's just south of Berryessa. And so they have over 300 species of wildlife, upwards of 300 species of wildlife. And so they've contracted with Pacific Watershed Associates to prepare scope to protect red-legged frog habitat and restore up to 2 ponds and 2 springs on the Rag Ridge site. So this is a unique mitigation because it not only is fulfilling the needs of the project, but it's also benefiting Napa County, and we're keeping the mitigation dollars in county, which is not always the case with a lot of these mitigations, we're spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars for projects that are hundreds of miles away from Napa County. So in that sense, we think this is a really good win as far as spending the dollars in the county of Napa. And so with that, we're asking the board to execute or allow the executive director to execute the funding agreement with the Land Trust of Napa County not to exceed $416,500. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
Thank you. Do we have any questions here on the dais? Yes,
I'm just,
Director Dorn.
thank you. I'm just curious what other alternatives we considered early on. I know we're well into this. And why we rejected them. You raised one good point about local dollars. That makes
Yeah.
good sense. But what were some of the other alternatives? And did we do a cost benefit analysis to see that it?
So we worked with Caltrans, and one of the other alternatives was, I think, in the millions of dollars. If you look at the incidental take permit that Caltrans put together for the biological opinion for the environmental document, that was in there. And so this was kind of like the cheapest, and also we thought that there was that intrinsic benefit of keeping the dollars within Napa County.
Thank you.
Director Eisenberg.
Yeah, I was just wondering, does Rack Ridge have red-legged frogs currently, and this would enhance their habitat such that more of them?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Director Shuto.
Thank you. My question, I'm just curious, why would we ever go outside of Napa County for something like this when there's so much diversity here and so many great.
So
places?
for the Swainson hawk, for instance, we couldn't find any habitat that met the California Fish and Wildlife requirements because it has to be specific, like upland habitat as well as foraging ground. And then these banks are regulated by CDFW or US Fish and Wildlife. So if you wanted to start, I kind of joke with one of our staff members here that she should start a mitigation bank because she has a lot of land, but it actually, you have to get it certified by US Fish and Wildlife or CDFW, and then you have to keep up with all these reporting requirements. So it's not something that we have control over. We always look to try to keep the dollars within the county, but that's not always the case.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, Director Joseph.
I was going to ask the same
Director, Vice
question,
Chair.
comment the same way, but I think it's a good example of making lemonade out of lemons. So good job.
Thank you. Let's open this up to public comment. Anybody online? I don't see anybody here that's standing up. Okay, then we can go ahead and seek a motion.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the executive director to execute and make minor modifications to the agreement with Land Trust for Red Lakes.
Second, Eisenberg.
Thank you. We have a motion by Joseph and a second by Eisenberg. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Anna Shuto, Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Danielle. Next, we have Grant Bailey. Is he here? It looks like we're 10.4 is an action item. Construction contract for the James, is it Deemer Drive Bus Stop Improvement Project? Pages 301 to 317. My agenda shows Grant Bailey. Oh, there's Grant. I should look at my screen. Grant, I'm looking for you in person. Okay, thank you, Grant, for being here. You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Alessio, Vice Chair Joseph, and directors of the board. Grant Bailey, Program Manager Engineer with NVTA, and this afternoon we're here to present, or I'm here to present an item related to the construction contract for the James Deemer Drive Bus Stop Improvement Project on the Napa Valley College campus. This project, I gave an update last month, but just as a recap, we went into a design agreement with RSA Plus to provide civil improvement design plans to expand an existing bus stop on James Deemer Drive. This bus stop would, the improvements would add bus pullout areas in the northbound direction on James Deemer Drive, as well as pedestrian crossing improvements a retaining wall, and a few other minor site improvements. These improvements were proposed because the current layout of the bus stop only allows for southbound pickup and drop off from Vine Transit. And if these improvements move forward, we would reduce approximately 200 minutes of transit time per day, equating to approximately $58,000 in annual savings to our transit budget. On May 8th, the design plans we put the project out for bid and expected bids to come in on May 8th. Unfortunately, we did not receive any bids. And so under Public Contract Code Section 22038C, NVTA is permitted to negotiate with contractors of our choosing if we don't receive a bid that was released publicly. And so we've done that, and we have solicited a number of contractors who have, and a few have come back and indicated interest in submitting a bid by the end of this month, May 31st. And in an effort to keep the current construction schedule, which is between June and August of this year, to make sure the improvements are completed during the summer session when campus activities are at a low and we aren't disrupting classes and in attendance, we are seeking approval from the board to delegate the executive director award authority in an amount not to exceed $650,000. We are also seeking approval from the board to authorize the executive director to enter into a construction contract and make minor modifications to the construction agreement as needed. And finally, we're also seeking approval to delegate authority to the executive director to authorize construction contract change orders in the amount not to exceed 10% of the base contract bid. I think it's also worth noting that while our construction engineer's estimate for this project is right about $475,000, we wanted to provide a little bit of extra, space for bids that may come in above our engineer's estimate, which is common given the current market conditions, although we did try to account for that. I think that concludes my report. I'll also acknowledge this is not a very common item. So as new information comes available, we'll be sure to report back to the board and provide updates on where we stand with this contract. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Grant, it might sound like I'm kidding, but I'm not. But are there switch gears or PG&E involved in terms of if we look at the potential cost increasing?
No, oddly enough, there are not. No, and so it's kind of an interesting phenomenon not receiving bids. We released the project on a pretty reasonable timeline to receive bids and then have the contractor complete the work in the summer. I think a strategy going forward with soliciting bids from contractors of our choosing was I worked with the city of Napa to figure out which projects they have recently bid and which contracts they're going to be awarding which contractors are going to be awarding contracts to in the near future. And so we reached out to contractors who will be working in the area, and 2 of those contractors have indicated interest. So
thank you. I don't see any questions. Vice Chair, you have a question?
Kind of a follow-up. You're right. It's rare. It's not often that sometimes we don't get a lot of bids, but usually somebody. So any other speculation on why no one was interested?
Yeah, just quickly, there's just so much construction work out there, and you have heard us over and over again over the last year about how this construction escalation that has occurred both in the projects that are underway and also the projected costs of a Measure U, right? The reason why we're so motivated to issue debt so that we can get a handle on that. So this is the same thing. It's a small project. Getting interest on a small project when there's multi-billion-dollar projects out there is just hard. And also we have all of the government requirements associated with really a relatively puny project.
It's understood. And I'm glad to see that we're trying to schedule it so it gets done with the least amount of disruption.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and open this to public comment. Any public comment on this item? Not seeing anybody in the chambers, not seeing anybody online. Okay, so we have three items here as described by Grant Bailey. Can we just go ahead and take care of all these three at one swoop? Excellent. Would somebody like to make a motion on these three items, other than Vice Chair who's making all the motions? Come on, somebody.
So moved, Garcia.
Okay, we got a motion by Garcia. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Shuto. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph, Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory, Paul Doring, Anna Shuto,
Yes.
Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. And so we also have 10.5, which is why Grant is staying here. This is also an action item, construction management services agreement with Thailand for the James Demir Drive Bus Stop Improvement Project. And go ahead, Grant.
Thank you, Chair Alessio. So this is a construction management and inspection professional services agreement with TY Lin. It is for the James Demir Drive project, same project we were just discussing in the previous item. The reason we're requesting, I guess, approval from the board for this is TY Lin, has the resources to provide inspection and construction management. And also they provide some specialized services like special inspections for materials testing and structural observations as needed. NVTA has limited engineering staff to perform these resources, perform these tasks. Where like a local agency, like a city or county, may have the resources in house to provide those services. NVTA cannot, and so we're requesting consultant support for construction management of this project. And so, yeah, So with that, the staff is recommending the board authorize the executive director to execute and make minor modifications to project work order number 23-OCE12-E04 with TY Lin for construction management and inspection services for the James Demir Drive Bus Stop Improvement Project in an amount not to exceed $129,450.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments before we bring it to public comment? Not seeing any public comment. And not seeing any public comment in the room chambers and we're online. Okay. Then we could move forward and somebody'd like to make a motion to the recommended action. This earlier time is like, it must be everybody's normal nap time or something. Normally we're a little bit more lively in here. 30-minute adjustment.
I'll continue to hog the
Okay.
motion industry and make a motion that we go ahead with the construction management agreement with TY Lin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We have a motion.
I'll
by
second this. McKee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Director McKee Cant. We actually have a second here, but thank you. So we have a motion by Joseph and a second by Williams. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory, Paul Doring, Anna Shuto, Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to 10.6. This is an action item. Purchase of zero-emission battery electric buses. Rebecca Schenk is going to present this, pages 330 to 355.
Thank you, Chair Alessio, members of the board. Rebecca Schenk here presenting on item 10.6. And we are asking the board today to authorize the executive director to execute purchase number P27-P014 to acquire 6 zero-emission electric buses being 40 foot in length from Gillig in an amount not to exceed $8.25 million. NVTA did receive a federal Lono grant to purchase these 6 electric vehicles as well as to purchase charging equipment. Today, we're only asking you to move and take action on the purchase of the electric vehicles. The electric vehicle production time is much longer than chargers. We'll get you the charger item as it gets closer to the time of delivery. That way, we don't get the chargers too early and eat into our warranty time in periods when we're not using those chargers to date. If you remember, last year you took action to purchase 8 Gillig electric buses. So this would bring the total to 14. Kind of the good thing about that timing and kind of a little bit about what that means for us is that they are going to move forward on their manufacturing schedule and purchase and I should say produce these 6 along with those 8. Still producing all 14 of those buses for us in 2025, as opposed to say doing these 6 individually in 2026, which would subject us to 2026 pricing. And we've seen significant increases year over year. Also in good news, not quite final yet, but we had originally been slated for the 4th quarter of 2025. It looks like some others don't have their infrastructure ready. We already have our infrastructure ready for the 8 buses, and it'll be pretty minor to put in the additional 6 chargers since we have all of the necessary equipment leading up to it. So it looks like they'll produce these buses in the 2nd quarter of 2025, which would mean about this time next year, we'd be receiving those buses. In terms of the financing for it, as I mentioned, Lono grant plus some matching from the Transportation Development Act funds. We will expect to receive HVIP vouchers on these and then some rebates from PG&E for these purposes, since we will be using their electricity in order to charge these. You will notice if you look at the purchase order that there's essentially 4 of the vehicles are at one price, 2 of them are at the other. Kind of a reason for that is those 2 will have charging, being that they can charge at the El Cerrito del Norte BART station and at the Vallejo Ferry Terminal, while STA is putting in in-ground chargers. So they will have the ability, they will basically have a plate on the bottom of them and allow them to do inductive charging at those 2 locations. And therefore we'll be able to run these buses on the Route 29. If we're going to El Cerrito, we actually already have a memorandum of understanding in place at that location with STA, being the Solano Transportation Authority, and they operate those express buses. So let's say, okay, Solano's coming in with their red bus, right? That's their routes are by colors. They'll come in, they'll charge for 10 minutes, get themselves up from say 40 to 50%, go on their way. We'll come in, do the same thing. And then we would reimburse them for the cost of the electricity itself. So I think it's a good use of joint resources and would allow us to use electric buses, hopefully at a 1-to-1 ratio on routes like the State Route 29. And with that, I think nothing else there. If you have any comments, I'll be happy to, or questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the presentation and excellent planning. Any questions? Yes, Director Gregory, and then we'll go Director Williams.
Thank you. So the 8 buses already ordered were funded by previous grant funding cycles?
Correct. They were a different grant. It's called Bus and Bus Facilities. It's also done by the Federal Transit Administration. This is a separate program that they operate, which is low and no admissions. We received in 2022, we got awards in both categories. And so this is for that second set. We have a separate grant agreement for these buses than we do for those first 8.
Okay. And what was I going to ask? Oh, in terms of our mandate to replace our buses with electric by a certain period of time, can you tell us, does this keep us on track or move us a little further ahead of pace or what?
Yeah, we're a little ahead of track because we did buy those 7 before we were mandated to buy any. We have a number of buses that will be reaching the end of their useful life. So this will kind of keep us on track with where we need to be.
Thank you. And yes, Director Williams.
Yes, I am looking at the schedule of price variances. Could you help me understand? I haven't seen this kind of schedule before, the kind of price variances on various items. And then at the end, there are various adjustments per the state of Washington, contract amendments. What is that all about?
Sure. So the state of California has a list basically where they go out and they do a group procurement. On that list, there are currently 3 electric vehicle providers. They are Proterra, who filed for bankruptcy previously, BYD, Build Your Dreams, which is an electric bus company, but we aren't allowed to use federal funds to purchase those because the batteries are made outside of the United States. And then New Flyer. We have had a very good experience with Gillig. In particular, they're located just here in Livermore. They came a little later to the electric bus market, so they were not basically producing electric buses when the state of California list came out. But the state of Washington list came out a year or 2 later, and they are on the state of Washington list. So we are buying off of that group purchase. We've seen other people within the Bay Area, for example, Marin Transit also took that route, and the FTA has approved us buying off the state of Washington list. So if you can imagine, it's like, okay, they have a set of requirements that they want all the buses to have, and there's a set price for each of those. So for example, if you're looking at the first item, which is the depot charging plug-in. So under the state of Washington list, we would just get 1 on the rear side for charging. But because of how our chargers are set up in our bus yard, sometimes it could be, depending on what spot you pull in, the charger would either be at the front or at the back of the bus. And so to give us some flexibility on parking and what chargers we can use, we opted for the option to have basically 1 at the front and on the rear side charging ports. And so as a result of that, we vary from the state of Washington contract by $6,850. If we had only gone with the 1 charging port, then that would be like where you have a dash and a 0. So many of the things on there, we went along with the state as it stands, but like other variations, say passenger pull cords is what's on the state of California, or sorry, state of Washington list there. We found that people can really pull those pretty hard, and we've had problems with maintenance for them. So we're going with the push button, but right, that comes to us at a cost, I think it was, now I lost it, but I believe it's like $61 or something per bus. So that's when the variations. You will also see some, like, for example, we didn't get a handheld mic. And so, because that's not how we do our announcements. So then we have a reduction. And so there's, in parentheses, would constitute a reduction from that state price.
Dr. Williams, is that good? Okay, very good. Director Sedgley, did your lights on? Did you have a question on this item?
Well, just to comment, I was looking at, Gillig and their history, where the buses are built and, who builds them. And I was happy to see that they're California built. They're headquartered in Livermore. That's where their manufacturing plant was. Their founder in San Francisco, 1889. He was a carriage builder. And so
Wow, that's cool.
from Gillig Brothers to Gillig now. So I always look to purchase local California workers in manufacturing. So they are pricey. Looks like they cost more than a fire engine, 1.3, which are pretty expensive. But yeah, that was I was hoping that's what I would find out on Gillig.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. After we do public comment, maybe you might have a motion. Any public comment? Not seeing any here. Any online? I'm not seeing any online. Do we have a motion to approve this item, this recommended item? We got moved by Director Sedgley. Okay, do we have a second? And who said that? A second by Director Gregory. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Donald Williams, Kevin Eisenberg,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Scott Sedgley, Ryan Gregory,
Yes.
Paul Doring, Anna Shuto, Margie Moeller,
Yes.
Robin McKee Cant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you again, Rebecca. Appreciate all your hard work. Moving on to 10.7, this is information only. Vine Transit updates. That's right. You get to stay and tell us more about your hard work. Pages 356 to 366.
Thank you, Chair Alessio, members of the board. we'll be presenting today and giving you an update on the most recent quarter, which is from January to March of 2024. But kind of before we get into those details, if you flip on to the next thing, you'll see the first item on our list there is some staff recognition. So if you go to the next slide. So kind of similar to what we had been talking about a little bit before, is the importance of maintaining your staff and having them here and keeping them content, and especially your top performers, making sure they're happy here. So, there's always a debate here at NVTA and things about, okay, who's here the longest? We've obviously had an executive director who's successfully been with us for many years, but it turns out we actually have 15 people that have worked for Transdev and their predecessor, essentially Veolia, working for Vine Transit for 15 plus years. Now, if I had all 15 of them here, I basically would not be able to operate service today. We would have had to have canceled all items. So that is not possible. But I do have at the end, I'll introduce you to Brian Wilkie, who wins the contest here for the number of years. But going through that list here, it's not here. Okay. Our first person is Charlene Hicks. So she's been our director of operations since 2012. And before that, she was a driver here from the Vine. So we do really work on kind of promoting through that system. She deals with all the day-to-day headaches and keeps coming back for more. So we thank her very much. She'll be very busy with Bottle Rock and La Onda this weekend. Second on the list there, I do have a picture there is Rafael Miranda. No matter what language, if you speak English, Spanish, German, Tagalog, if you basically live in Napa and speak a second language, that is who you want to be your bus driver on any given day. It's quite helpful. Next up is Minerva Thompson, and she also has progressed from driver to dispatcher. And if you want to meet her, you might not want to go to bed. It's the best thing just to get up at 3 a.m. or maybe just stay up till 3 a.m. and you'll see her because she opens dispatch at 3 a.m. On a regular basis. So we thank her, and that makes things like the state route or the Route 29 operational at 4:30 a.m. So she keeps us moving. Kelsey there on our list is a driver, and if it's your first time riding, we hope you get her. She gives great instructions and would make pretty much anyone feel comfortable and ride it home. Coming up next is Harold Jones. Harold really has an excellent driving record. He's driven for us for over 500,000 miles without an accident, so you'll be safe in Harold's hands no matter what you do. Not even really a mirror. I mean, it's a really nice driving record. In terms of Luce De Leon, he's always doing overtime and is willing to do that. We had, especially during COVID, a series of missed trips, but we would definitely have had many more without Luce's help. Then we have Bradley Hansen. He is an expert at directing tourists throughout Calistoga. He often takes that bid, and you will see him up in Calistoga, especially during the times of the year when we have 2 shuttles. Then we have George Tapia. He is a VineGo driver. And if you ever in the future in a walker, you would definitely hope he is your VineGo driver because he would lead you patiently to your destination. He's very patient and will not rush you and will let you move at your own pace. Next up, we have Elaine Ordonez there. She's always looking out for kids. She pretty much treats each kid that gets on the bus like her grandkids. Next up, in a little different job, is Bobby Sias. He does helps to clean all of our shelters in the cities, in the individual counties, and he is constantly on the run. His brother actually works for us as well. And kind of the running joke is if they go to visit their parents in the Philippines, they're like, it's all over. Like, it's all going to be messy. It's not going to be good. Our buses aren't going to be fueled. We are in trouble. So never like when he takes that month trip. And then we have Fikre, and he's always smiling, in a good mood, and his energy can definitely be contagious. And then on the bottom there, people that don't like pictures, don't know why, but Azana Duquesne, she is the head of HR, and she is constantly in recruiting mode, working to attract our drivers, our mechanics, our utility workers to come up here to Napa and to sell them on working here for the Vine. Then we have Olga Zenteno. She is where you would go if you need help in the Vine customer service office. She helps many of our Spanish speakers get to where they need to go. And then last but not least, if Brian wants to come up, so he wins the prize. So he has been with us for 25 years. He has driven He has driven over 1 million miles for us. That was looking it up the other day. You've driven 40 times around the earth. Now, I assume that means, I don't know if that counts the water. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, it's on. Yes. I don't know if that counts the water or if they assume that's land masses. I didn't get into the details, but also without an accident. And he is very diligent, always on time. If all of our drivers were like that, my on-time performance would be much better. So we're hoping he can teach some others how to stay on time. And I'd be happy if you'd like to say anything.
Hello. Well, I guess I'm on the spot, so I don't know where to start. It's just 25 years. I didn't think it would be that many years. But it's the longest job I ever had. But I enjoyed coming here and, you know, just showing up, and I love what I do and taking care of the community. I don't know what else.
Yeah, I think that's
So,
perfect.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
But
That says a lot right there,
I
Brian.
just, you know, I'm an on-time person, you know, driver, so I got to make sure that I'm on time because I always got eyes looking around and everything like that. So, I probably maybe another year and a half or something. I'll probably be retiring pretty soon. I never would thought I would be saying something like that, but, yeah, so.
Thank you
I
so
enjoy it.
much for your service. We
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. I've
Certainly.
seen a lot of, you know, people come, a lot of people go, so I don't know how I ended up just staying around.
You've outlasted
We're
them
very
all.
great. We're
I
very
lasted
grateful that you
everybody. I've
did.
seen so many, huh? Yeah, so, yeah, I appreciate it, and I thank you guys.
Thank
Brian.
you.
And we have a little
Oh,
shirt
Laura's
for
got something
you.
There
for
we
you.
go.
It can go with your 1,000,000-mile shirt. So you've got your 25.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
Congratulations. And
Yeah, we'll replace them.
I did.
there, that looks
time.
nice.
Thank you very much.
Very
you,
good.
Brian.
Thank you so much, Brian.
All
Yeah,
right.
you were here early. I'm like, this man is prompt. You were here a
Right.
while ago. Now, thank you very much. Thank you for caring for the community and continuing your commitment, dedication.
So, right, I'm always still looking for drivers, but I'm happy to have this set. So on the next slide, in terms of a little jurisdiction update, right, in the city of Calistoga, we had talked before about re-putting in a stop, I should say, in front of CalMart. We've been working with the city to find a new alternative location. So we'll be resubmitting an encroachment permit to Caltrans for a little bit further east down Lincoln Avenue, where there's already also a red curb. And we hope that Caltrans will approve that new location. Up in St. Helena, we did complete on the next slide, sorry. Oh, she's over there. In St. Helena, we will be moving a stop coming up here once the Vine Trail has completed their work, and we'll be moving further north from in front of Freemark Abbey to closer up towards Trinchero, and we'll notice that whenever that happens. One thing on the next slide that we did complete in St. Helena is we did move the bus stop from in front of the old city hall. We often had conflicts with the mailbox there and with left turns coming out of Pine. We moved it to that northeast corner, and that successfully happened this week. And so now riders, they have notification at the old stop, but just have to wait a little bit further north for their bus. And we had a lot of support from the city of St. Helena to do that. In Napa, we are really excited. They recently approved Granite Construction to do the Laurel Street rehab phase 1, which basically means that we've been traveling on Laurel Street for years, but we were only ever able to stop on the west side due to the sidewalks and us not meeting ADA compliance. But now, as part of that plan, we've integrated 3 bus stops on the east side of Laurel, and we hope to start serving them with the Route B coming up at our August schedule change before school starts. And then finally, in American Canyon, this is not a service that we are operating, but we are just trying to help to facilitate it and hope it succeeds. As many of you know, the Wine Country Airporter recently started, and as of, I believe, around May 13th, working within the city of Napa and American Canyon to take people to the airport. They are using the same stop that we utilize in American Canyon, and they have 4 stops a day. if you're going to take it, just know you have to make your reservation ahead of time. Otherwise, the bus will not stop at those given locations. We're hoping that this helps individuals get there. They're also stopping right across the street from our Redwood Park and Ride at the Marriott. So if you're in the city of Napa looking to take the airport or look to take Vine Transit to that location, and you'll be on your way. On the next slide, you'll see, and Kate had talked about earlier, we're doing free rides. This year, we did make a separate schedule for Bottle Rock and La Onda. So if you're going to either of them, you can check it out online or pick one up on your way out. And we were happy kind of with the design there. We'll see. We did 5,700 trips last year. I don't know. I'd do an over under on 7,000. Emily's been really doing a good job of putting out the word for both of those events, and hoping to increase our ridership for those two events. Finally, we have some outreach events that we've been doing, everything from Napa Valley College to the Earth Day. We saw many of you at the Earth Day Festival, Bike Fest, and then Bike to Where Anywhere Day, as Kate had mentioned earlier. At all these events, right, we're trying to promote the Vine system, as well as other projects and programs that we're working on. And then to our kind of normal updates here in terms of local service. So in this case, I'm looking at passengers per revenue hour, and I'm looking back 1 quarter and then 1 year. So in the city of Napa, right, well, you want to see that grand jump, but we are consistently seeing an increase in passengers per revenue hour. And that also means that, like, for example, in the 2nd quarter and 3rd quarter of this year, we operated additional hours than say we did in the 3rd quarter of the 22-23. So even with the additional hours, the ridership increased enough to increase our passengers per revenue hour. On the next slide, you'll see the breakdown on our individual routes, right? We know that Route C going from Rolfs Manor down to visit us here at the Soskel Gateway Transit Center continues to perform well, with our on-demand there on the Route A at its lowest levels. Looking regionally on the next slide, our routes 10 and 11 are performing just around 7 passengers per revenue hour. We're finding the 11 in this quarter surpassed the 10, and that we're operating some more hours on the Route 10 than the 11 now, but it hasn't gained as much ridership that it could maintain its dominance in terms of passengers per revenue hour. When we're looking at our on-demand, we know on the next slide, we know our American Canyon Transit continues to be our star student there at over our pre-COVID minimum at over 4 passengers per revenue hour, followed by Calistoga. And this is kind of the off season for Calistoga and the period of time between January and March when they just operate 1 shuttle and then do not operate on Sunday. So we always see as prime tourist season ramps up an increase there in terms of the demand. And then what you'll see is a comparison now on kind of fixed routes. And we're focusing, we know we're below pre-COVID levels. I will let you know that day when I hit COVID levels, trust me. But we're looking back basically 3 years, right, in terms of 2022, 23, 3rd quarter. So we're comparing the quarters. And so you'll see, you know, if we're looking back to kind of at the height of the pandemic in 2020/2021 there in yellow, we've made significant gains in Napa from yellow to blue on the Route 10, on the Route 11. We weren't operating in that 3rd quarter of 2021 on the 11X, so that's why you don't see a yellow bar there. And then it's just basically been consistent relatively on the Route 29 with a slight uptick and very little deviation there on the Route 21. In looking at those same quarters on the next slide, when you're comparing your on-demand, right? Things like VineGo, right, which hit obviously their lowest point, you're seeing kind of a steady increase, as well as with American Canyon between each quarter. You see more varied growth, for example, in Calistoga, and in particular with the 2nd quarter of 22-23 being quite low, but we're seeing a jump then in this most recent quarter of January 1 through March 31 of 2024. And then last thing, just to bring your attention to on the following slide is we had approved that fare increase. And so on the next slide, you'll see that does take effect on July 1. And that's the notice that we have put out on all of our buses. As a reminder, we seem to have all the items in place in terms of our fare box, our clipper, and then our notices related to cash. So I think we're all set for our fare increase on July 1. The company GenFare who operates our fares, I just have they're in like Minnesota or something, so they're 2 hours. So I'm like, okay, 7 a.m. my time, 9 a.m. their time. We'll have a call on July 1st in case anything goes awry, but I think we're ready for that. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much. A lot of really good news. We're seeing progress.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing progress, and more to come. Maybe we're starting to get that momentum. Especially to increase ridership. Any comments or questions? Yes, Director Eisenberg and then
Thank you.
Director Garcia.
I'm glad to see that the Calistoga shuttle is getting use.
Yes.
And I can definitely see that when I am in Calistoga. One of our constituents in Calistoga shared a possible electric replacement, which I'm very concerned about. This has an Altoona score, 92.5, from Green Power Motor Company. And if there is an electric alternative, instead of having to repurchase gas cars, I would so very much, and actually everyone in Calistoga would so very much like to have that. And I was wondering if that could be investigated to see if we could proceed with an electric alternative. I know we're due for replacement.
Yeah, and I think long-term, the answer is yes. And we did already receive the grant, execute the award, and the vehicle's been manufactured for Calistoga in terms of the gasoline vehicles that we will be receiving. They have kind of a shorter life though than our other say a heavy duty vehicle, which has these have a 7-year life as opposed to a 12-year useful life. So I think after that 7 years, definitely. I did just do a quick look. So they had a very good score on Altoona. My concern would be this to say, I mean, whatever, grant funding and all of those things aside, that they can go up to 150 miles at this 25-foot range, which it is a good number. What we find though with our electric buses is we basically drive them. We set our mileage, like if I'm in St. Helena, Calistoga, City of Napa, that I want to go till my gauge gets down to 20% each day. And then I want to be able to, because I want to always have that buffer, because if the temperature is a little bit higher, it can eat into that 20%. If I have to go up a hill a few more times than I expected in Yountville, it can eat up at that. So if I have that 20% buffer, it means that every day. So all is to say that 20%, 150, I basically want to make sure that it can go 120 miles. And what I'm finding is that it can go 120 miles. I looked at the last year, so about 350 days that we operated in Calistoga. On 86 of those days, our mileage on the bus exceeded the 120, and a large portion of those days even exceeded that 150. So at its current range, my concern would be the ability of a vehicle like that to operate every day consistently, because we have a large number of days where it wouldn't be able to finish the day.
So I hear 2 points. One, it's too late and there's nothing we can do because those gas buses are coming. Point one. And point two is the current configuration, a portion of the year, you don't have a buffer. So.
Well, yeah, and a portion of even of those 86, I'm exceeding 150, so I definitely could not complete the day.
It's so hard to imagine that Calistoga shuttle going more than 150 miles.
You know, there is a solution, and that is that the city could contribute the revenues needed to buy 2 electric vehicles. So you had one on standby. Because that's what we have to do right now with electric buses on our commuter service. We have to buy 2 for every 1 diesel vehicle that we're replacing.
Right, but even so, there's going to be some gas buses arriving in Calistoga, and you're saying
That's
there's
right.
absolutely
Yeah.
nothing. we
Well,
can
I
do
mean, I
about
guess
that.
what this could happen is we would have 2 gasoline vehicles. And if the city of Calistoga wanted to purchase an electric vehicle for us, we could operate 1 electric vehicle and 1 diesel vehicle, or 1 gasoline vehicle, and then keep the second gasoline vehicle as the backup. So as we got later in the day, it would drive the rest of the day for that electric bus.
And there's no chance of canceling the gas order.
Well, if we cancel the gas one, we give up the funding associated with it, so then we wouldn't have, it's not as
Which-
though we would get that money
Right,
back.
which was the whole reason that we didn't buy an electric bus in the first place.
Right.
Okay.
These grant cycles are forever. And I think what else we could do is so there'll be another Lono round, or not Lono round, sorry, there'll be another 5310, which is the funding source that we use to buy those shorter vehicles. 5310, we could apply in 2025 to get electric vehicles, with the idea that we could, you know what I mean, add to Calistoga. And or we could, if we got 2 of them, take out one of the diesel buses, right, operating Calistoga, and go electric to electric with one of them. I will say you apply because the funding that we got for Calistoga, right, for those buses, we had applied in 2021 and got it in 2022. So if we apply in 2025, it would probably be 2027 is when we would get those electric buses.
I think this is really complicated and where I think we're inundating you with a bunch of unnecessary detail. I think we could go back and take a look at how we could do this, but that we are stuck right now with the procurement that we're in. When we apply for those vehicles, we apply for them for a specific location, and you only get the money if you're doing a replacement. So there's a lot of complexities in the funding that we get, but maybe we can take a look at, other funding, other ways of making that happen. And thank you for giving us a heads up on that vehicle. The only thing that I can think of why we didn't know about it's not on the state list, right? We'd have to buy it outside the state list.
Right. It's not
Yeah.
not on the
So,
state list.
Another complication, but we can overcome that. So let us take a look at where we are and let us give you a more refined answer based on all of the moving parts.
Thank you for looking into it.
Thank you for your question, Director Eisenberg. I promised Director Garcia, and then I think PCC, Deborah Smith, did you have your, no, okay. So Director Garcia, and then we'll go Director Williams, okay, and then Vice Chair. Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. Folks down my way are kind of excited about being able to get transportation to the airport.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming those hours posted means there's a round trip in there somewhere. They
Oh,
gotta come back.
yes, that's where it picks up. I picked those 4 times, but there is a return. They actually use a slightly different stop, so we don't conflict then.
Okay, so is there any projected time on when the round trip from the airport, say San Francisco to coming back to Napa is?
You'd have to look at their schedule. I'm not
Okay.
sure offhand
Oh,
what
as
the
opposed to-
timing, but
all right.
it's a direct shot from American Canyon to SFO, for example. So however long it takes you in the car on that given day is how long it would take on the
Yeah.
bus on that
It
given
just
day.
kind of helps if we folks know the schedule. Having
Yeah,
family
we can-
in New York, I have found that route very, very convenient. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
It actually puts you off right at the airline. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Director Garcia. Director Williams.
Thank you. Yes, in Calistoga, I'm in concert with Director Eisenberg about our interest in the electric vehicles. And I sent this morning to you, you'll find in your email
Yes.
a summary of the information that was provided to us, and your response and your comments, and Kate, you're copied on that also, and Kevin. And your input on that email will help us, when you get a chance to respond, will help us to understand in Calistoga what strategies we might take in order to actually acquire and implement the electric bus that we are interested in. So we'll look forward to seeing how you can respond to that.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Yes, in American Canyon, did we ever figure out a way to have Saturday service for the little AC transit?
Yeah, we hadn't received, I guess, a proposal from the city of American Canyon, but we could definitely generate one and send one out. For example, the city of St. Helena had approached us about potential increase in hours, and we recently gave them a cost estimate to consider. We could do the same thing for you.
Okay, thank you.
And I just have one question. And I've asked this before and I don't recall what the answer is. I'm concerned and it kind of came up as you were talking about the summer heat, especially in Upper Valley. And even the city of Napa, and I know American Canyon, is not having shade structure or even a small bench to sit on at the different bus stops. I know that's an expense. Is that something that there's grant opportunities? Does that fall within the public works within the jurisdictions, or is that something, NVTA works at? How can we provide more shade structures? And again, not something where people can kind of move into, because we've seen that too, but something that just provides shade and a place to sit as their wait.
Yeah, so I think it's something that NVTA would initiate. Last year in the city of Napa, we replaced 16 shelters, and some of them were replacing a bench, say, with the shelter. When I kind of look at like goals for the year, I had placed a number at 10 for this year with the hope that we applied for the AHSC grants. AHSC grant, so Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities. And through that grant, we teamed up with the city and then the developer of that old Sonoma Road location. And so if that grant is received, and we'll probably know preliminary numbers are due to us this month, and then we'd know in July whether or not we got that funding, that would enable us to replace 10 shelters in the city of Napa. We really focused there around the area that is that old Sonoma Road redevelopment. So a lot of things on the Route B and the Route C. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But yes, there are some grant dollars. I will say that our review process at the city for replace these shelters has taken us a long time. And that does end up, not allowing us to replace as many as we would like, but we'll continue to push forward on that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Not seeing any other comments, any public comment on this item, even though it's informational. Not seeing any public comment online or in the chambers. Excellent. So we're almost done, folks. 10.8 is informational only. And this is the federal and state legislative update by Executive Director Kate Miller, page 367 to 389.
Thank you so much. Just real quickly, on the federal side, we're going to see this constant shift of appointed positions leaving the administration. This is typical. Most recent announcement is that the Undersecretary of Policy, Carlos Monje, has resigned, and he has been replaced by Christopher Coase, who is the current Assistant Secretary of Policy for the DOT. Congressman Thompson has included a $3 million congressionally directed spending amount on his project lists. This would cover the pre-construction phases or complete the pre-construction phases of the St. Helena to Yountville Vine Trail project. So that's good news if it moves forward. It looks like it's pretty solid. On the state side, everybody's just talking about the budget. It's pretty grim. We're still looking at about a $27 billion shortfall. And part of what's being affected is the $5.1 billion that had been set aside for addressing the transit fiscal cliff as part of last year's budget trailer bills, AB 102 and SB 125. This funding is still whole, but it's being delayed, and some of it is being pushed out all the way to fiscal year 2028, which is not good. In your packet is a letter that is signed by MTC and a few other of the region's transit operators, including NVTA, who will be affected by that by the delay in funding, pleading with the governor to please release those funds. So we'll see what's going to happen. I'm not very optimistic about that. The only other big change that I'd like to share with you is that there has been a lot of changes to SB 1031, which is what I mentioned earlier. This is the transportation measure that MTC wants to put on the ballot in 2026. The measure would raise about $1 to $1.5 billion. But like I said, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of contention among the partners in the region about how this should be structured and who should be responsible for overseeing it. But the changes would require MTC in consultation with the transportation authorities or CMAs such as NVTA to develop an expenditure plan. The expenditure plan must also be approved by the majority of the TAs. Again, this is a change that's being requested representing the majority of the population. So we're a rounding error in that. I would not need to be, or this body would not be approving anything probably, or would not be required to approve anything. Also, it requires MTC to amend or update its regional transportation plan to include smart service to Cloverdale. And it prohibits placing a regional funding measure on the ballot in the counties of Marin or Sonoma before November 2028. And after the first 5 years, the return to source increases to 90%. Right now, it's at 70%. If Marin and Sonoma agree to participate in the regional measure, SB 1031 requires share of revenue to SMART out of their funds, which must equal an amount generated by SMART's existing quarter-cent sales tax. You might recall that I think 4 years ago, SMART tried to get their existing quarter-cent sales tax for that they use for operations, and it failed in the ballot. There was a lot of contention. There was a person who funded an opposition campaign at $1 million. So they've got a looming operating shortfall coming up. And then 25% of the funds dedicated to safe streets could also be used for safe routes to school projects. And those are the changes. It'll be interesting to see as right now, I think, this is the last day that the legislation can be heard and so we'll see what happens. I'll have more of an update on all the pending legislation that this body has acted on in your June meeting.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions on that item? Not seeing any. Okay, I don't see any that Director Mueller or Mickey can't. I keep remembering to look over, make sure you don't have any questions, and it looks like you don't either. I don't see hands raised. Okay, so moving on to future agenda items. Are there any items you wish to put on the agenda for the future? Not seeing any. Okay, excellent. So we'll adjourn the meeting at 2:56 ahead of schedule, which is great. I want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend and a Bottle Rock weekend and a Loco Motion weekend. And we will be back on Wednesday, June 26th at 1 o'clock, and we'll adjourn this meeting at 2:57.
And
Sure,
just
let's-
before we're closing,
Yes, did I
go
miss
ahead, I'm
something?
sorry.
I didn't see a place for comments on board member comments, but I wanted to thank Rebecca Shank. She stuck it out till the end. We had a long contentious meeting, council meeting last night with about 3 hours of public comment. So thank you for hanging in there with us.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. I was watching from home.
But yeah, I think we came to a good decision. And then on the audio, I noticed when Grant presents, he must be in the building. The audio must be good. But when we have the Caltrans report, we have some other remote audio. I don't know if anybody else, or it is Older Adults Month for nationally older adults. If it's just me, or does anybody else
You
have
did do
trouble
the
with audio?
resolution or proclamation last night. I could
Yeah.
hear him fine, but we could turn up the volume next
Well, I don't know,
time.
it's a matter of turning up the volume.